Hey everyone, welcome back. I think for a general idea, we're going to call this one the single alignment patch, but there's a lot more to it, so let's jump right in. The GUI, or graphical user interface, got a complete overhaul, and it actually makes the game look a lot more modern than it did before. There's a new toolbar at the top of the screen by default, which has all our old options in the original menu. It's much cleaner now. The paper doll is also really nice. They combine the player stats with the paper doll, and I also like the dark schematic of all the UI elements. It feels a lot like Darkfall should. So two heavy hitters for the UI, where that's concerned, is the bank and backpack resizing. Awesome change, and you can bet I'm going to have the most organized bank in Agon. Also, another cool thing is if you look over here on the minimap, below it has the 3 recalls, so you just click them and it automatically starts your recall if it's off cooldown, and I can only assume sooner or later it's going to show the cooldown there too. Now this other little button on the minimap takes us into our next topic. It says here, hit protection enabled. This is Big Picture Games' first development towards creating a better new player experience. This is intended to serve as an anti-griefing mechanic. When toggled on, which it is by default, when you're in what is considered a new player protection zone, your weapons and many of your spells won't damage blue players. This serves 2 main purposes. 1, so newer players don't accidentally die in town when they're just learning or shooting rats. And 2, so other players can't jump in front of their attacks at starter spawns like the goblins. This used to be a very common tactic in starter spawns to get someone to flag gray, so you could freely attack them for several seconds. With this enabled, it blocks melee, archery, and single target razor bolts from doing damage, but AoE spells like Toxic Rain, Fireball, Wall of Force, those sorts of things, they'll still do damage and flag you gray, likely causing you to die to towers. Also of note, tower damage has been increased in capital cities and starter towns as well to make them much more deadly, even if you have arcane jewelry on. Alright, since I mentioned towers, let's talk about the new single alignment system. All players now abide by the same alignment. Everyone is either blue or red, and it doesn't matter what race you are. Awesome change, because it brings the community together, opens the whole world up to everyone, and makes it much more clear who's actually red or blue. So about the bindstones, capital cities have capital bindstones, which require 200 plus alignment to bind at. Starter cities have greater bindstones and require 100 or more alignment to bind at. And the outskirt cities have lesser bindstones, and anyone with negative 200 alignment or more can bind to those. That means, yeah, people who are barely red can come in and bind at that city. What does this mean about towers? Well, they're going to treat everyone within the zone as blue, as long as your alignment isn't worse than negative 200, so it still allows people who are barely red to live in some racial cities. Also, any race can bind to lesser bindstones, but only the previous race alliances can bind to their own greater and capital bindstones. All that said, you're going to see a lot more traffic around all the different racial lands, people of all races. And while you're out and about, keep your eyes open, because there's a lot more dynamic loot like the reagents spawning a little more often, and they have a higher yield. Another cool thing to make that easier, like picking up papyrus or the reagents or chaos chests, is you can just hop off your mount at any time. You don't have to stop moving, you don't have to sheath your weapon, you just hit F. You'll also notice the textures get a nice overhaul, and we can only expect the visuals to get better from here. Some areas still need a little bit of work, but overall this is a great first step toward graphical improvements. And hot dang, check out that new Cobra staff. Speaking of staves have been moved to their own crafting. It's called staff crafting. Previously, Black Bolts and Cobra staves were by far the dominant and most used staves, so this patch hopes to bring some diversity to the mix. In addition to generic staves with stats based on speed and damage, there are 4 other types of staves. Life staves, which boost lesser and greater magic, dark staves, which boost witchcraft and necromancy, light staves, which boost spell chanting and arcane, and elemental staves, which boost all elemental magic. With these new staff additions, enchanting recipes for transmutated staves have been removed. There's also a staff crafting mastery, and a lot of these staves, including the Cobra staff, actually do require a rare ingot now, which I feel is a really good change because the staff is a mage's weapon, so why shouldn't it be a little more expensive than it was? Herbalism has also been removed, and the mixing skill has replaced it. Everyone has mixing when you create your character. You use the mixing skill at the laboratory, and you need a dropper from the merchant. You can use mixing to create all sorts of potions all the way up to panaceas. With stabs being taken out of alchemy, alchemy has received some changes too, and you can also make potions there, but they have different recipes than the mixing. Let's take a look. So in addition to making potions and cithar components, alchemy can now be used to combine 5 of a single quality enchantment into 1 of the next quality. There's also an alchemy mastery, which is used for better potions and higher quality enchanting materials. Keep in mind the Q5 materials here do not share the place of other Q5 materials in crafting recipes. These new Q5 mats are called combined mats, and they can only be used in enchanting. And real quick while we're on the subject before we wrap it up, skeleton bone is the new Q1 bone, so you can't use the spellcasting bone for Q1 bone enchants. And to quickly wrap up the crafting, weaponsmithing has been finished, meaning the one-handers and knives all have their own varying speeds and damage weapons, as well as R70 versions for each one. And this last bit is huge for streamers and multitaskers alike. The game runs in borderless windowed mode now, making things so easy and smooth. Thank you so much for this one. That's going to wrap up this patch overview, guys. And just for a while, Christmas drops are in, so don't forget to get your Santa hats and candy canes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video, guys.